Welcome everyone. In 1993, one man left, and two men of supposedly equal power levels were granted the role of character designer. Katsuyoshi Nakatsuru would handle the character designs for the remainder of Dragon Ball Z and the much-loved Dragon Ball GT, while Tadayoshi Yamamuro would handle the character designs for all future theatrical movies. But how do these two powerful figures, these two titans within this franchise, stand up against each other? Well, all that and more in today's video. Of course, so the featured artist for this video is Art Boy Kev. He does some nice work and is trying to reach 500 followers, so let's try and help him reach that goal. A link to his account will be in the description, so go show Kev some support in his art journey. Now to some of Yamamuro's work in Dragon Ball Z Movie 8. So with Broly, Yamamuro has done a great job at illustrating writer Takao Koyama's vision of Broly. Of course, I additionally have to give series author Akira Toriyama credit as well for the original design and outfit, but still he looks imposing just at first glance. His wide shoulders, oversized muscles, and height all communicate the key information about this character. Like the bend in the forearm, some nice shapes there. In terms of the shape for the head, it's not as narrow as Toriyama's and is a bit wider. Kind of interesting how he left out the side view and front view as well. Usually with character sheets, you have your 3/4, side on, back, and front view. Probably would have been a little helpful for the animators to have had those. It's also interesting to see that he indicates the split in the bicep. It's a small detail I don't remember seeing in his work outside of this, or any animators on Dragon Ball for that matter. There's also open line for a lot of the anatomy like the pecs, bicep, deltoid, etc. Of course, Yamamuro is known for drawing a lot of these muscle groups in solid shapes and still does to this day, so it's kind of a surprise at first glance seeing them in this style. By the time you get to the next Broly movie, it is standard and you get an example of what I meant if you're confused or unfamiliar with his work. Although while we are on this one, I will say that drawing the muscles in such a way does make the character feel even more defined and muscular again. The shape design I think is more clearer as well compared to before. It's also nice how Yamamuro pushes Broly's upper body out more and places the shoulders back a little compared to the original sheet. Kind of emphasizes this character's strength a bit more from a visual standpoint. For the female designs for movie 8 like Chi-Chi, solid work, quite simple, really not any unnecessary detail. This one of Janemba is also quite good. There are some nice straight to curve with the arms, nice forceful shapes. It would have been great if he had continued to push that with other characters as well. Completely separate from Yamamuro though, the orientation feels a little odd. Janemba's leaning forward for whatever reason. Again, nothing to do with Yamamuro, so I wonder if it's just to do with this particular scan or the placement of whoever compiled these designs together. For Gogeta, he has a good variety of head angles, certainly helpful for the animators, some nice diagonals with the eyes, probably could have pushed the eye crease around the form of the face a little more in this one. He does for the rest, so it's very minor. Also, some distinctive shapes for the hair, that's laid out fairly clearly. Pity it moves in the opposite direction down the line. The full body sheet of Gogeta looks great as well. The looseness to the pants is really nice, although perhaps too much detail on them. If it was an illustration, I'd say it's fine, but for a character sheet, it's not really necessary. You've already got some nice shapes and overlap, so there wouldn't be really anything lost if there was less line. Front on, you have this really rigid look to the arms actually. It pretty much makes a box. You can see in Toriyama's illustrations for the front on shots, he would usually have this bend in the gesture and more curves in the shape. Again, not as rigid. Of course, you may have some illustrations by Toriyama that go contrary to what I just showed, but it isn't really the standard in Toriyama's work, that is. Although I will say with how short Gogeta's screen time actually was, I don't think this had a drastic effect on the final animated product. But to the next legend, Katsuyoshi Nakatsuru, I think starting from his work in the Otherworld tournament right before the Buu arc is a great place to begin. And Nakatsuru really draws upon Toriyama's designs from within this period of the series, even despite former character designer Minoru Maeda having such a cult following among many fans. Nakatsuru filling this role doesn't bring a drop in quality whatsoever, and if anything improves the look of the series. But to his designs, I would like to start off with Pikkon. You've got a really large range of expressions here. This is quite detailed, and that is important. Character sheets are an essential guide for the animation team, and you want to create one strong enough that when it's handed off to the rest of the staff, they have a clear indication of how to draw said character, and you do get that from his sheets. Also, I'll add that there's a really nice pose here. I like the bend in the arms and the curve here. Great stuff. And I thought it was worth pointing out how well he redrew Toriyama's original design for Pikkon. Usually when Toriyama would provide character designs, whether it was Minoru Maeda or Tadayoshi Yamamuro, they would trace them onto their character sheets, which is quite a simple solution if you want to translate Toriyama's designs to the screen as accurately as possible. Still though, I like the extra effort Nakatsuru made. Moving on though with this sheet for Tapcar, you can see Nakatsuru has made an effort to clearly illustrate a lot of the intricacies with this character. Although I can't read Japanese, nor is the quality of the scan that great as is, he seems to indicate some details about the mouth, how when he runs his legs should be smeared out with a group of lines, and when he sweats there is this pool that forms when he gets really exhausted, as well as a size chart in comparison to the character he goes up against and his silhouette. For a relatively minor character, it's actually surprising how nuanced these notes are, especially considering that up until this point in Dragon Ball, the character sheets were on average pretty basic. Now to this one of Gohan, which I really love. And for context, this sheet on screen is from the 2008 OVA, Yo Son Goku and his friends return. However, Yamamuro, who was the character designer for that OVA, reused many sheets from Dragon Ball Z and the original series, and this one is no exception. So this is 100% Nakatsuru, not Yamamuro. It's pretty much the highest quality version I could find of it, but back to the design, I really like the curves to the neck and upper body. The shape design for the anatomy is also nice, quite rounded. Nakatsuru's always had a softer touch to his character art, so I'm glad that's still very present here. It also doesn't fall into that squarish look. Not that I think that look is outright bad whatsoever, but I find that in this style it's just that bit more appealing for me personally. Perhaps it's because it looks more grounded. Another note in regards to appeal is that I actually prefer the proportions he's given Gohan over Toriyama's depiction. In the manga, Toriyama lent to more thinner arms and wider necks at this point for Gohan. Once again, perhaps not bad, but Nakatsuru's take is a bit more in line with how we've seen characters drawn up until this point. Ironically though, when it came to Dragon Ball GT, Nakatsuru did seem to lean more into Toriyama's designs of this period. It's quite evident in the scene he did in the last episode of GT and in his character designs especially. But with his rounded touch, it makes the characters' faces look even less defined and wider, which I never really went for. This is definitely one of the reasons why GT's designs look different to the Buu arc, despite having the same character designer. But moving forward, I added this one in as an example of how his work could fall into sort of the same trap Yamamuro's could, and that is an over-reliance on straights. I'll chuck this fan render in on the side since the original is pretty low res, but you can see you've got a straight torso, straight arms, straight legs. There's no bend almost anywhere in contrast to Toriyama's own work once again. And it's kinda interesting considering Nakatsuru out of the majority of the staff had the strongest understanding of Toriyama's designs. So yeah, it's a little surprising he didn't channel it as much with some of the poses. Still, I'll point out that this isn't in every design either. This one of Gohan, you have some nice straight to curve with the legs and bending with the arms and neck. Then in this sheet of Gohan, while nicely drawn, it's back to the rigid look. So yeah, it's kind of a mix within his designs, and I think this is an important note though, because I've seen some fans attribute the stiffness in the designs within this period sort of down to blocky anatomy, but as seen, there's a little bit more to it. It's more so having a good balance of straights and curves, but most importantly, forceful shapes. Key animator and animation supervisor Keisuke Masunaga is a great example of someone who had quite blocky shapes without really any break between the line for major groups like the bicep and pecs, but still never really had any rigid art and could draw some quite energetic gestures. Again, Toriyama also demonstrates this as well. But moving on though, and before we get to the overall conclusion, I saw this comparison image and I thought it'd be fun to look at. So with Yamamuro's designs on the right, he drew quite a thick neck to Gohan and more so of a wide face with slightly rounder lines to the side of the head, which is interesting because when looking at Nakatsuru's designs from GT before, I started to wonder if it was actually just Nakatsuru's designs being the reason why faces became even wider and the proportion of the necks increased within Yamamuro's episodes in GT, but it seems that even back on Z, you could still spot these traits beginning to emerge. With the ears, he draws them pretty small, gives Gohan a bit of a larger forehead, smaller nose, and has more of a slimmer shape for the eyes. Nakatsuru, on the other hand, has more of a narrow look to the head, which I do prefer. The eyes have more of that rectangle shape, which does look quite accurate to Toriyama's style. But even so, I think Yamamuro's are just a bit more expressive here. When it comes to the ears, honestly, I don't really mind either way, although the larger look does remind me a bit of early Z, so I guess I lean to Nakatsuru a little there. Definitely prefer the slimmer neck though, that's for sure, and some shading out with lined underneath it. With the hair, I like the shape design in both, but again I kinda lean to Nakatsuru's. That rounded look to the clumps of hair make it feel a little more fluffy, and the orientation of the hair is more pointed upward and isn't as wide. It just looks that bit cooler, well, to me at least. But now to the conclusion. So firstly, with Tadayoshi Yamamuro, I think it was a great choice for him to handle the designs for the movies. Yamamuro had shown a heap of promise at this point. He had already moved up through the ranks within the studio he worked in, Shindo Productions, and brought such a modern and refined look to the episodes he supervised. And having him fill this role as well as supervising all future movies, at this time it really brought a refreshed look to the series' visuals. Doing a side-by-side comparison to movie 7 is a great way to see that. His designs were also nice and well drawn, although they did lean to a little too much detail at times for character sheets, still quite appealing designs on average. Now with Katsuyoshi Nakatsuru, again, I can't think of anyone better at this time to fill this role. Nakatsuru did actually work under former character designer Minoru Maeda for many years in Studio Junyo. He likewise, within the few episodes he had supervised up to that point, and within his own key animation much like Yamamuro, had a very clean and consistent look to his work, if not perhaps even a little ahead of Yamamuro initially. Nakatsuru had also worked as a character designer prior in the Bardock special, so he had some experience in this role. Furthermore, he of course was, and still is, quite skillful in replicating Toriyama's style. Even Toriyama himself praised him in this area on a couple of occasions, and mentioned as to how he got their work mixed up several times. The only other person who could match such a criteria would be Masaki Sato. However, he had left the series at this point, doing character designs for Slam Dunk. But Nakatsuru, again like Yamamuro, did freshen up the show's designs quite a lot, although he didn't put as much detail into the designs as Yamamuro. They were a little simpler in that regard, which is a positive, although of course there are exceptions where he could get rather detailed. That's definitely an area he has improved with over time. His character sheets for the Blue Dragon anime, that was based off the video game which Akira Toriyama did designs for, is a great example of him having moved towards even more animation-friendly designs over time. He was also quite clear with his notes on characters. Clear communication is important, and I feel that he did a better job than Yamamuro in that area. With poses, like mentioned, he could get quite rigid. Yamamuro is no exception there either. I'm tempted to say that they cancel each other out in this area, kinda ironic because that would very much change around in the following decades. But now, final verdict, I think I'll give the win to Nakatsuru. He was an amazing character designer for all the multiple reasons stated, and only improved over time. Still though, I honestly find both their styles to be quite appealing in this era. I think that's clear by how many videos I've made on these two, and with saying that, I'll also add that I still think Tadayoshi Yamamuro was a great character designer as well. But with that final note, I'll conclude the video. So thank you everyone for watching, and thank you to IJC King for the idea. Great suggestion, and for the 5 people that are still watching, if you have any video ideas you think would be a smash hit, leave them in the comments. Who knows, you might top IJC King, then again maybe not. But with that, thank you as always for your support. Let's try and get this video past 5 likes, I think that's achievable. And with that, I'll see you later.